Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out. Hope you're doing great today on this last weekend of February. This is the 284th episode of Tech It Out, averaging about 3 or 4 interviews per episode. That's a lot over the past 5.5 years. Thank you so much for your support. I'll tell you who's on tap today in a moment. But yeah, Tech It Out started in July of 2017 on about 40 radio stations across the country. And now it's on more than 100, as well as the Tech It Out podcast, which launched, I want to say 2019, which is also doing great. Once again, thank you for your support on Tech It Out and to Radio America, my partner on this program. And a sincere thank you to those podcast listeners out there who took the time to give a star rating or a review at your favorite podcast site. That goes a really long way on places like Apple Podcasts and all that, because it tells others that they should tune in. Or for those who told a friend about the show. Really appreciate it. Hey, so we do have a great Tech It Out plan for you this hour. Don't you just hate those spammed calls and robocalls? Well, we're going to kick things off with T-Mobile in a moment about how effective its free Scam Shield app is. After that, Western Digital drops by for a chat about its latest drives, the WD MyBook, the MyBook Duo, and MyCloud solutions. And get this, MyBook now goes up to 22 terabytes of storage. Wow. And finally, car thefts are on the rise across the country, as you likely know. And so we're going to chat why and cover 5 tips to reducing the odds of becoming a victim. We're going to talk with ESET, a leading cybersecurity company. All of this and more on an all-new Tech It Out, powered by ASUS for those in search of incredible. I'll tell you more about ASUS shortly, but let's jump into our first interview. When it comes to mobile phones, perhaps we don't agree on everything. Like my iPhone-loving friends won't accept the fact that I'd argue the Samsung Galaxy S23 cameras are superior, in my opinion, as an example. And we may not agree on what size phone is best or what form factor, but something I'm sure we can all agree on is how annoying those spammed calls and texts are, those robocalls as well, how disruptive they are personally and professionally. Well, one carrier, T-Mobile, is making a dent in this disturbance with its Scam Shield app. Joining us to chat is Steve Carlson, Senior Manager of Communications at T-Mobile. Thanks for your time, Steve. Good to chat with you.
Hey, good to chat with you too, Mark. Thanks so much for having us on.
So before we talk about Scam Shield and how to best protect yourself from robocallers, please tell us about T-Mobile.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we have gone from being the distant 4th largest wireless carrier to being the country's 2nd largest in the span of about 10 years or so. And it's been a remarkable ride. And we've done it by providing the best 5G network, now the best overall network, providing just unmatched value to our customers. That's been the secret sauce, so to speak, that's been allowing us to grow. And the Scam Shield suite of scam protection services is just one example of those things that we're giving to our customers for free to make their lives easier.
All right. And we're going to dive deeper on Scam Shield in a moment. But tell us something that our listeners may not know about T-Mobile.
Yeah, we've been really good at connecting our customers via our network and providing the value that customers really want. Things like price lock guarantee, travel benefits when you're traveling both domestically and internationally. But I think a lot of people might not know about T-Mobile is what we've been doing as a socially responsible company. The big news that we announced recently is we are going to be achieving net zero emissions across our company's entire carbon footprint by 2040. And if we do that, we'll be the first U.S. wireless carrier to do that. And we are already the first to set a net zero target. That's pretty awesome. And we're in the business of connecting people. And our goal is to connect people all over the world, primarily here in the US. But when our customers are traveling overseas, we're connecting them to the things that are most important to them. And here at home, a lot of people don't have that same opportunity to connect to the things that are important to them. So our Project 10 Million, which we launched in 2020, is bringing critical connectivity to underserved students nationwide. This is about bridging or closing that digital divide that we talk so much about. And through the end of last year, we've already provided more than $4.8 billion in services and connected more than 5 million students across the U.S.
Wow. Congrats. I read also that you have over 100 million customers to date, which is remarkable. Kudos. All right. So now let's pivot and hear about Scam Shield. What is it all about?
So Scam Shield is our arsenal of scam protection services that we offer for free to our customers. And the two premier or the biggest services are what we call Scam ID and Scam Block. And with Scam ID, this is the identification tool. So when a scam call comes into the T-Mobile network, we use our database of known scam numbers. And we also have these very sophisticated algorithms that identify the call patterns that calls take through our network. And we can use that to identify which calls are most likely to be scams. And when that call goes through our network and goes to the customer, if it's a known scam call, it'll say scam likely right there on your phone. And of course, you can decide to disregard it altogether. The other option is called Scam Block. And when you mentioned at the top about how disruptive scam calls and robocalls can be, Scam Block will take that disruption away. So if you, for instance, let's say you're part of the gig economy and you rely on your phone every day, maybe you drive for a ride sharing company. If you're getting hit with scam calls all day, that's disrupting your business. And Scam Block protects the customer from getting the call in the first place. And all you have to do is dial #662# to opt in for Scam Block. And then when those calls hit our network, it's like they never even happened.
Oh, cool. Because, I know some of my readers, they say, well, people are calling all the time from different numbers, even numbers of people that they know, like in their contacts, or it's off by one digit. So it can be tough to block a specific number because the way that these spammers work is then the programs they use is that often it's auto-generating new numbers all the time, right? So it can be tricky. So there must be some other algorithms there. Talked about your secret sauce. There must be some other things going on in the background.
Yeah, well, and we're all in this together with our customers. I mean, we all want to prevent these from coming through. So in addition to updating our known network of scam numbers every 6 minutes, we also make it super easy for our customers to report scam calls. So if they get a scam call, we make it super easy on their phone. They can flag it for us, and then we'll add it to our database.
Okay.
Those are the two big things. We also have free enhanced caller ID, so you have more confidence that you know who's calling. And what you mentioned a moment ago about scammers using phone numbers that look local, that's called spoofing.
Yeah.
And when you have enhanced caller ID, the spoofing doesn't work. You'll know if it's the legitimate number. We also give folks additional tools to help protect them on the back end. And one of those is a free second number. It's called T-Mobile Proxy. And it's a phone number you can give out for marketing purposes. So you don't have to give out your personal number. And that phone number can handle all of the marketing calls. It doesn't have to be scam even. If you just don't like to get marketing calls, then just give out your second number. Don't let them call your main line. And if you do need to change your number, we'll do that for free also. So it's a whole bunch of stuff. It's all through the free Scam Shield app.
Another benefit to having a secondary number, just before we move on, is that if you are selling something on an online classified site, meeting somebody in person, maybe it's like Facebook Marketplace or something, and you don't want to give a stranger your real personal number, then that's a good application, as well as online dating, right? If you're not sure if the person's going to turn out to be a creep or something, you don't want them to have your personal number. Sure, you can block them, but why not just avoid the headache and have that proxy number instead? So I applaud you on that. We're chatting with Steve Carlson, spokesperson with T-Mobile, chatting about the Scam Shield app, as well as the newly published report, the robocall report. Steve, can you tell us what you were looking to find out here?
Yes, this is our most recent annual robocall report, and it looks at all the trends that we see in scam calls. And some of the stuff that comes out of this thing is really fascinating. One of which was we identified or blocked, T-Mobile did, more than 41 billion with a B, scam calls in 2022. That's a 75% increase from 2021. That's, if you do the math, and maybe some of your listeners have already done this, that's more than 1,300 calls identified or blocked every second.
Second.
That's ludicrous.
I saw the running tally on the Scam Shield website. That's just insane. That's an incredible number.
And interestingly, we actually saw a significant dip at the start of the pandemic. Scam calls dropped significantly, like a ton. And a lot of that was because scammers' lives were disrupted just like everybody else's. And their businesses and their scam businesses were disrupted. And it took them a while to get back going again. And what we find is that scammers don't like working weekends any more than the rest of us. So we see significant drops in scam calls during the weekends. And while we see ramping up of scam calls during the beginning of the holiday season to try to take advantage of nonprofit scams and things like that when people are in a more giving mood, when we come to the actual holidays themselves, we see up to an 80 to 90% drop in scam calls on days like Christmas and New Year's and Easter and even the 4th of July. So they don't want to work holidays any more than the rest of them. But they also then do latch onto, like I said, seasonal trends. Holidays are a big part of it. We also see a significant increase in scam calls during back to school time, and we're right in the thick of tax season.
We're more likely to fall for something if it's timely, right? So without question, these are all great tips that complement the software doing its thing. You're sharing some common sense advice as well. So with that in mind then, Steve, how do we get going with Scam Shield? We need to be a T-Mobile customer first?
We do need to be a T-Mobile customer. Once you switch over to T-Mobile, you get our fantastic network. You get all the benefits, including Scam Shield, and that's for free. And so all the things I talked about, the T-Mobile proxy number, the scam ID, the scam block, all of those things that protect you, and not just protect you, but also they can remove the nuisance of scam calls right away too. I mean, like that's a huge benefit, like I said, for folks in the gig economy. And you just have to download the Scam Shield app. Once you become a T-Mobile customer, you can do it through the App Store, through Google Play, and all the tools are right there at your fingertips.
All right, Steve, is there a website you could recommend to read this robocall report and more info about T-Mobile?
Absolutely. The best place to start is always T-Mobile.com.
All right, T-Mobile.com. Thank you for talking with us today.
Always a pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
We'll be right back with more Tech It Out.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. This show is powered by ASUS for those in search of incredible. ASUS creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. And that includes its line of award-winning laptops and desktops, monitors, smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. While there's been a lot of buzz over the past couple of years about solid-state drives, or SSDs, as an alternative to hard disk drives, or HDDs, when it comes to high-capacity and long-term storage for your important data, I'd argue a reliable hard drive is the way to go. To learn about some new MyBook and MyBook Duo drives from Western Digital, we're joined by Nitin Kachhwaha. He is Director of Product Management at Western Digital. Thanks for your time, Nitin. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mark. I'm very glad to be on the podcast.
So, hey, before we talk about what's new, please give us a Western Digital 101, if you will, and why someone would consider one of the Western Digital drives for data backup.
Sure. So yeah, Western Digital has been around for more than 50 years developing storage technology, and we have evolved over the many years. And today, Western Digital is the world's only company that designs, develops, manufactures, and markets both hard disk drives and solid-state drives. We are trusted by some of the biggest enterprises in the world, as well as by hundreds of millions of consumers and small businesses. And they store all their most precious digital files and documents on these drives. Mm-hmm. One of the key things that differentiates us is that we understand how people and businesses consume and use data. And then we are able to relentlessly innovate storage solutions that enable today's needs and tomorrow's next big ideas. For the consumers, we are known under WD, WD Black, SanDisk, and SanDisk Professional brands.
All right, so there's a few different brands under the Western Digital umbrella, including WD, that we're going to focus on mostly today. But yes, I'm glad you mentioned that SanDisk is part of the family. They are often the ones that make those solid state drives, USB thumb drives, and those little micro SD cards that pop into a laptop or a digital camera or an Android phone, that kind of thing. But we are going to focus mostly on external hard drives under the WD brand. I hinted at this off the top, Nitin. What are the benefits of a hard disk drive compared to other kinds of storage that I mentioned?
Yeah, sure. The biggest advantage of a hard disk drive is that it allows you the capacity to store lots and lots of data in a very cost-effective manner. For consumers, these hard disk drives are available in both a portable form factor, up to 5 terabytes in capacity, which you can carry around with you, as well as higher capacity desktop variants, where the capacity, for a single disk is all the way up to 22 terabytes. But then if you start piling these drives together, you can have an enormous amount of storage at your disposal. So it's really the price point that you can buy these drives at for the capacity that you get is what kind of differentiates the use of hard disk drives over flash or solid state drives.
And just to be clear, a portable drive means that you can plug it into your, say, laptop when you're on the go, and it doesn't require any additional power. It gets the power from the laptop itself.
Yeah, that is exactly correct.
So a desktop drive, which can store more, up to 22 terabytes with some of your drives, that's unbelievable, by the way, compared to up to 5 terabytes with a portable drive, which is typically smaller. It looks like a small deck of cards, if you will. Those will require power from an external source, not just from the computer itself. Appreciate the clarification. And just to bring everybody up to speed, 5 terabytes, that's 5,000 gigabytes. Like, that's a lot of storage. That's like hours and hours and hours of home movies and several 100,000, if not more, photos, potentially millions of documents. So it is like, pound for pound, the value proposition is there. Not to mention, you're not spending a monthly fee on cloud storage. This is yours to have off the internet, right? It's your data with no monthly charges at all.
That is exactly correct, Mark. Believe it or not, yes, 5 terabytes is a lot of storage. But, if you look at the amount of content that we are generating right now, with all the different capture devices that we have, all the cameras, even our phone cameras are all 4K, right? 60 frames per second. The amount of video that you can generate or amount of storage that you would need to capture even an hour of footage there is enormous, right? And it's been growing tremendously over the past few years. So, this is where, a lot of our high capacity desktop storage drives come in, where it offers you, capacities beyond what you get in a portable drive, right? This allows you to consolidate all of that content that you have, whether it's documents, photos, videos, into one single solution and be able to access, all that content whenever you need it. Really dependent on, whether your internet is working, your Wi-Fi is working, but you have, all that content at your disposal all the time in your house.
So that's a great segue to talk about these new MyBook products. So this is obviously one of the more popular brands under the Western Digital banner. What's new with MyBook, these new external drives?
Yeah, so MyBook is a very popular external desktop drive solution that we have had for more than a decade and consumers love. So what's new there is that we have recently announced availability of, our 22 terabyte capacity point in their MyBook family, using the EPMR or Energy Assist Perpendicular Magnetic Recording technology and our OptiNAND technology, which, allows us to cram like 22 terabytes of data in the single 3.5-inch or desktop form factor. Right, so that's what we are kind of using to create this 22 terabyte MyBooks.
Wow, 22 terabytes. So as you mentioned earlier, we are capturing a lot more ultra high definition video content, and that takes up a lot of storage space. So you don't have to just be a digital pack rat like I am. Admittedly, this can all fill up quite a bit, but wow, up to 22 terabytes of storage is insane. We're going to continue chatting with Western Digital when we return. Stick with us. We'll be right back with more Tech It Out.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. We are chatting with Nitin Kachhwaha. He's Director of Product Management at Western Digital. Speaking of capturing videos and photos, these are irreplaceable, right? It's not like songs that if you didn't back it up properly, that you could just get those songs again from your favorite artist. But it's so critical to properly back up your important files that cannot be replaced, those precious memories that you want to pass down from generation to generation. And so I often recommend to have an extra copy of a backup, not just one, but at least two. And that brings me to the MyBook Duo that I want to ask you about. Tell us about the MyBook Duo drives.
Yeah, so MyBook Duo is a RAID drive. So this is a solution that ships with two drives inside an enclosure. As the kind of name suggests, MyBook Duo. Duo stands for two drives inside. Mm-hmm. So by default, it ships in sort of a RAID 0 configuration, All that means is for a consumer, they get access to the capacity of 2 drives. And internally, what's happening is, when you write data to it, it's writing data simultaneously to both the drives, which gives you a little bit more performance than you would get from a single drive.
Is it performance or peace of mind? You know what I mean? Like in case something happens and one drive fails, not that it's likely to happen, but in the event one drive fails, it makes a copy onto that second drive.
You can configure it like that as well. So there's an available software that allows you to configure the drives in a RAID 1 configuration, where, as you said, Mark, right? Then it's going to write the data in parallel to both the drives. So you essentially get a copy of your content, in the second disk. And that way, if you lose one disk, you have all the data on your other disk. You create sort of a mirror of the data that you're writing to it. And then all this happens through, utilizing a RAID chip that is inside the drive. So therefore, this chip that's on the drive is doing all this magic, and it's not taxing the computer resources, and it's not slowing down your computer as this RAID is happening in the background.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I cut you off earlier, and I was going to ask you about that performance comment you made. So I've been talking about writing to the drives, but when you're accessing or reading the drives, like information that you've got stored on it that you want to pull up, are you suggesting then that a RAID setup will yield faster results?
It will, right? So it's in the default RAID 0 configuration, and not only would you write faster, but also you will read faster from the drive.
How much do these MyBook drives cost and the MyBook Duos start at? And again, I'm assuming here that the Duo drives cost more because, as you mentioned, there's a chip in there and there's 2 independent drives. And of course, the more capacity that you go with, the more expensive these drives are, generally speaking. But what's the starting point?
Yeah, so MyBook, starts at 4 terabytes capacity, goes all the way up to 22 terabytes, and you can get it for $100 for the 4 terabyte version, and goes all the way up to $600 for the 22 terabyte. And then the MyBook Duo starts at $440 for the 16 terabyte version, and then goes all the way to $1,500 for the 44 terabytes. Right. All this pricing is determined by the market, so it kind of fluctuates. But this kind of gives a general sense of what's the price point for these products.
What about the WD drive that you can also access on the internet? Do you still have those private cloud solutions as well?
Absolutely. We still have our NAS solutions in the market.
And that stands for network attached storage. Even when you're not at home, you can access files on that hard drive privately, so you're not paying a cloud provider.
That is correct. The product brand that has that functionality is called the MyCloud product line. Yes, we do have those available as well.
Awesome. So you can be on vacation somewhere, Nitin, on your iPhone or your Android tablet or a Windows or Mac laptop, and you can, for example, watch a movie that's stored back at your home on that WD drive.
Absolutely. That is the intention for those product lines, right? Where you can have access to the data whenever you want and wherever you are, although the drives are sitting back in your home. The only caveat there is that you have to have a reliable internet connection. And as long as you have that, you should be able to access the file that you are trying to get to.
Got it. And again, that's the WD MyCloud rather than MyBook, but still part of the same family. All right. Finally, any tips to taking better care of your drives? I've heard it's ideal to keep them in like a dry place, for example.
Actually, it's pretty straightforward. The drives are actually pretty reliable, and then they can operate in a variety of different environmental conditions. And taking care of them is pretty straightforward, as you would take care of any other electronic equipment. The only thing to remember is not to drop them right while they are operating, as they have many electronic components inside. But outside of that, it's pretty straightforward. One thing I would say is I think it's even more important to take care of the data that's stored on the drives. And I think you mentioned before, Mark, having multiple copies of your data is extremely important. And we always suggest that make 3 copies of your data. And then keep at least one of them outside in a physical location, whether it's the cloud or
or a safety deposit box at your bank.
Seriously, right?
And that's because in the event of, heaven forbid, you have a fire at home or a flood, then your backup could be destroyed along with the original.
That is absolutely correct. The data that's stored there is so much more important. You don't want to lose that, all those memories.
Thanks so much for your time, Nitin. It's been great chatting with you. The best website to learn more about these new MyBook and MyBook Duo solutions?
Yeah, so if you are interested in learning more about the WD brand products, you can go to www.wd.com. And if you're interested in kind of learning more about some of our other brands and products, you can go to our corporate website, www.westerndigital.com. And you can also follow us on social media platforms, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Thanks again for your time, Nitin. Great chatting with you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for having me on the show. It was a pleasure.
Hey, what drives do you use for local backup? Let me know on social media. Do you use Western Digital's solutions or maybe another company's, and why? How much storage do you have or need? Would love to interact with you on social media. I'll spell my name in a moment, but I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and now TikTok. In fact, I've been uploading my Tech Tip of the Day videos to TikTok, and they've done quite well. So as the host of Tech It Out, my name is Mark Saltzman, MarcSaltzman. So again, it's Mark with a C, Saltzman with a Z, and you can find me on those social media platforms that I mentioned: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or TikTok, wherever you like to hang out online. Love to hear from you, what you think of the show. Again, you can tell me what computer accessories you rely on, or if you have questions about them. If you want to follow me for my tech tips of the day, I link to articles as well that I write for USA Today, Costco Connection Magazine, AARP, Common Sense Media, and others. Of course, I link to the radio and podcast interviews and much more. So looking forward to chatting with you online for all those Tech It Out listeners out there in Radio Land or Podcast Land. When we return on Tech It Out, we're going to learn all about stopping car thieves in their tracks with 5 simple tips. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Tech It Out, hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. If you've been following the news lately, car thefts are way up year over year. Not sure if it's tied to a worsening economy or just cars are easier to steal these days. I don't know. But my next guest may be able to shed some light on what's going on here and, more importantly, provide some tips to reducing the odds of your vehicle being stolen. We're joined by a friend of the program, Tony Anscombe, Chief Security Evangelist with ESET, a leading cybersecurity company. Nice to chat with you again, Tony.
And it's good to be on the show again, Mark.
Thank you. Before we get to car thefts and what we can do to reduce them, please tell us about ESET.
So ESET are a cybersecurity company. We've been in the business 30 plus years, which is quite a long time in the cybersecurity business. We have products and technology all the way from consumer all the way through to big enterprises. But at the heart, we're a bunch of researchers that look at what's going on in the cybersecurity industry, whether it's on a phone, laptop, or indeed, in this case, in a car.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to chat with you about today. We've had you on the program to talk about everything from phishing scams and ransomware to securing your smart home and grandparent scams. But today we're going to talk about automotive theft. And, you know, I live in Toronto and we've had record car thefts over the past year. I read that thieves are, in fact, employing technology to their advantage. How so?
Well, they certainly are. I mean, we've seen variants of this in the last few years. You've seen thieves using relaying key signals. So if you've got one of those lucky key fobs that as you get towards your car, it unlocks the doors, or you don't need to get the key out and put it in your car, you just press the start button.
Yeah.
Then, of course, they're relaying those signals. But more latterly is we're seeing people abusing some of the technology in the car. So the onboard diagnostic port and actually cutting themselves new keys and even using air tags or such like to track where the car is parked overnight once they've seen it on the street or in a car park.
Yeah, could you elaborate on that? So AirTags, of course, are an increasingly popular tracking device. They're just about the size of like a quarter. What thieves are doing is they're putting them in a vehicle that they're interested in stealing, but maybe not at that exact moment, and then using their phone to track where it is on a map. Once it's, say, in your driveway, maybe in a less public area than like a mall parking lot, that's where they do their thing and try to lift that vehicle off your property. Is that right?
That was a perfect description, Mark. And of course, it's not just if you're in a parking lot. One of the things we all do is trust the valet, isn't it? So if you're valeting your car, is the valet leaving something in your car that shouldn't be there?
All right. So from AirTag trackers and reprogramming the car's factory settings to relaying contactless key signals, obviously tech may be answering that question I pose off the top as to why it's happening more these days. But are these vehicles, in fact, themselves easier to steal, Tony? I mean, say 20 years ago, where I think it's called the Slim Jim, where it's like a very thin metal device that you slip down the side of the window and you open the car door, and then you see it in the movies where they rip out the wires from underneath the steering column and connect them. I don't know if that was as easy to pull off as it looked in the movies, but is the fact that the cars are becoming more techy making them more vulnerable?
Well, for a moment there, Mark, I thought you were talking from experience of teenage years.
Yeah, hardly. I watch a lot of movies.
And I don't think it was there. I think it's been a long time since it was as easy as you see, even in the movies. Even today, kind of Hollywood still show you the joining of two wires together to start the car. Cars have had immobilizers on them for some time to circumvent that type of thing. So I think that's a long time ago. But as we add technology, then unfortunately technology gets abused. And that technology is there for several reasons, isn't it? One, actually to improve our security, but also to improve our convenience. Having your car key no longer needing to be in the side of the steering column, and it can just stay in a handbag, in a pocket or whatever, is super convenient. You just get in your car, you push the button and off you go. However, of course, when software is involved and technology is involved, somebody will come along and find a way to circumvent the protections around that technology and abuse it. And that's the unfortunate part about this. And in this instance, for example, cutting new keys by using the onboard diagnostic port on a car can be abused from tools that maybe a criminal has downloaded from the dark web.
All right. So it's not that the cars themselves are easier to steal. It's just that the technology is aiding these thieves in new ways to their benefit, unfortunately to our misfortune. Any idea which cars are more vulnerable? I know that there are these lists out there that say, we don't want to insure these vehicles, or watch out if you own one of these. In North America, are there some sort of commonly understood vulnerable vehicles?
I would look at this the other way round. It's, there needs to be a market for a criminal to sell the vehicle.
Okay, so it's supply and demand, I guess.
I think it's a supply and demand issue. And if you look at the list of vehicles, they're being shipped off. So what happens is the criminal deploys his nastiness to get your car off the drive, and it's in a shipping container and it's off somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a demand for those high-value cars, whether it's a Lexus, a BMW, etc. And unfortunately, it's those cars that are in demand that get stolen because, of course, you need a market to actually monetize your crime.
Right. Okay. It's not just the high-end ones, though, from what I understand. I know there's a Toronto area mayor who listed some, not to cherry pick these, but it was even like, just like a regular Honda Civic or Ford F-150, obviously popular pickup, a Honda Accord. There was a Ram truck in there as well, Toyota Tacoma too. So I'm picking the ones that were mentioned by a politician. But is it true that some insurance companies are saying we don't want to touch these? That's where I think it gets scary as a vehicle owner.
Well, the insurance industry is pretty good at understanding risk, isn't it? And they will look at, one, the high-value cars that criminals are taking, but also, somewhere in there, the risk of whether they're vulnerable and what the manufacturers are doing to actually protect those vehicles.
Yeah.
Or your insurer might insist that you have a third-party solution added to the car, an additional alarm, which will reduce the premium significantly.
5 easy tips to avoid your vehicle getting stolen when we return with ESET on Tech It Out.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
We're talking with Tony Anscombe from ESET about stopping car thieves. Tony has 5 tips to fighting back. So without further ado, Tony, let's go through them.
One is to actually protect your keys. Put your keys, stop this relaying of signals. So I don't know whether you've seen the videos online, Mark, from law enforcement, but basically, it's a 2-man job, and it's a relatively low-cost crime. One thief stands by the door of your house, and we all do it, don't we? We put our keys in a basket by the door because it's convenient. They stand by the door in the middle of the night. somebody else is down by the car on the drive and they relay the signal from your key to the car and unlock the car. Of course, it doesn't mean they've got the key to your car. It means they can drive off in your car, though.
That's right.
Put the keys in a tin, in a Faraday pouch or whatever it is, or more importantly, let the battery run out and just use it as a key. So one of the other things that's important is under the steering column in most cars is the onboard diagnostic port. Now, I don't know whether you're like me, Mark, but I actually have one of those onboard diagnostic machines. So when the engine light comes on my car, I can actually look to see what the issue is before I take it to the garage and get them to spend $100 on having them tell me. But unfortunately, that OBD port under that steering column can be abused. It can be misused. A lot of manufacturers will allow a new key to be cut if the right software is being used in conjunction with that port. So if you've lost all your car keys and you do get your car to a main dealer, what they do is they cut it by plugging something into that port. And unfortunately, the tools and the software are circulating for many cars on the dark web, where a criminal can actually download the ability to plug into that port and in effect create their own key. This is a particular problem, of course, because once they've got the key, then it makes the car very sellable as well. So you can put a lock on that port. You can buy a physical lock that goes over that, and that visual and physical deterrent should help you there.
Okay, I didn't know about that. Great tip.
Yeah, I mean, it's a physical lock. It sounds a bit old school, but, it's a great deterrent. One of the other things is, I'm not too sure it goes for a lot of high-end cars, but a steering lock. A visual deterrent, something that actually steps outside old school, a visual deterrent, and actually it's a pretty good combat, because if they see it, it's difficult to remove, and more to the point, they'll move on to the next car.
I can see it acting as a deterrent, like a bright red bar that's inside of the steering wheel that implies that it's going to be hard to cut or break into the lock component. I haven't seen one of those in a while, but certainly a good tip.
The other thing is, if you've got a garage, is to remove all those boxes in your garage and have that clear out and make space for your car, so that you can actually conceal your car at night and lock it away. I mean, it is, if you've got a high-end car, it's a valuable asset. You've got maybe $50,000, $60,000 sitting out on a drive. Just pop it indoors and lock the door on it every night. The other thing you can do is, we mentioned AirTags as well, is AirTag your car. There's a thought, isn't it? Is actually have your own AirTag sitting somewhere concealed in the car, so that if somebody does steal it, that AirTag might well get picked up by the AirTag network in the way that works if somebody's stolen it. So it would be like a mini tracker without you paying the expensive fees to a tracking company.
I like that. However, I would just caution listeners not to attempt to retrieve the vehicle on their own, to work with the authorities.
I would back you up on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just err on the side of caution. Similarly, if your phone is stolen and you've got a Find My feature enabled and you see it on a map, I would suggest you don't go and try to kick open the door of a thief's home and try to get your phone back. You might be inviting additional trouble there. You have one more tip for us, Tony, before we wrap up?
Yeah, the other tip is if you are parking your car on the drive or out on the street in front of your home, put a camera up and just capture those camera moments of movement around the car, etc. The pictures could help law enforcement get it back. It might not actually stop the person stealing it, but it may well help future crime.
Good point, because they could be perhaps found and arrested following the incident. But this is all great advice. Some is high tech, some I like the fact that it's low tech. Every time you're on the program, I learned so much. What would be the best place to read your articles, your blog posts, see videos that you shoot? Is it still welivesecurity.com?
That's absolutely the right spot, Mark, and hopefully I don't scare you too much.
Well, we're going to have you back on in the future to talk about how to prevent hacking of an autonomous vehicle, which no doubt will be a topic of discussion in the coming years and decades. But this is great stuff. Tony Anscombe's been our guest, ESET.com or welivesecurity.com. All the best, Tony. Have a fantastic March, Fraud Prevention Month, in fact, and we'll have you back on the program soon, I hope.
I look forward to it, Mark.
Speaking of protection, a huge thank you to Visa, a partner on Tech It Out, as they've made some significant anti-fraud investments over the past 5 years to the tune of about $10 billion. This is to support Visa's brand promise to protect the financial information of both individuals and businesses. So whether you shop online or at retail, take comfort in knowing that when you use your Visa card, you've got full protection against fraudsters out there. Learn more at visa.com/security. Also, a huge thank you to ASUS for those in search of incredible. I'm recording this Tech It Out show on an ASUS laptop right now, in fact. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and I look forward to catching up with you next weekend for another episode of Tech It Out. Ciao for now.